Okay, so I'm back here. So I said we were going to do models, so we're going to do some models here. I got a bit of work to do to get this to function properly, but we're going to start off with easy mode. And Taz, come on, no barking. Hey. Fortunately, I got construction workers down the road. My dog is like, I don't know what that noise is, so let's bark at it. So let's see, how do we want to do this? We have a couple options. We can use the dynamic render system in the Sentry gun. We can continue using the entity, which would actually not turn out too bad. I think the option we want to take is we do indeed want to render it from the tile, because that controls our position and we don't have to worry about the entity moving around because somebody fucks with the entity. It'll break the hitbox, but it won't break our position for our model. Maybe. Yeah, we'll go with that way. So we're going to use a dynamic model system. This is a system I built up specifically for working with things. So it's render dynamic. And by default, this actually will tie into tethers. So you could actually trigger and use tethers to render with stuff. We're going to put this down here. And we're going to actually break our code into two segments. So tile, Sentry, client. Sentry. This way we actually get proper handling. So we want to return null here. That's good. And this needs to be on the bottom. That's good. What else do we need to throw client side? There's not a lot we really need to be throwing on the client. The Sentry gun tile is pretty much a dormant object. Not a lot to really toy with it. But in here we need to port over our render code from our existing entity. So we got to render here. We're gonna keep this class, but we're just gonna dormant the object. So we're gonna move everything over to our render system. Okay, so we want to go if Sentry doesn't equal null. The trick with this is we don't really have the Sentry gun stored client side. So that's where trying to render this from the tile gets problematic. But we're gonna just work on it because we've committed to this, and that means we need to at least see where it goes before we decide to not do it anymore. We do need to get our handgun render. We're going to kill all this. I'm just going to empty the class file out. Actually, no, I won't do it this way. I do need to turn it off, which means I have to go actually here to turn it off. There we go. By default, by the way, we don't have to do anything with this. Only thing we have to do is come up here and go this dot render normal block. We want to make sure we're still rendering the normal block. Then we want to render tile entity to true. This dot opaque is opaque equals true or equals false. This does need to be ported over the new system eventually, but we don't need to worry about it at the moment. So there's our handgun. What we're going to do is we're going to go utilize my one client's render code real quick. Trying to think of how to do it. So we've got to, actually let's go hunt down one of the old Sentry guns. Let's see what we get here. Okay, that's not even finished. I don't know who was working on that. What do we get for the mortar shell? Maybe this will be, we could use this for, oh god, that's not usable. Pocket turret. Pocket turret's probably one of mine, which means it's probably not great. Hey, this is the original Sentry gun. This will work. It, it doesn't look like much, but that literally is the original ICBM Sentry gun. This is what was made. There was a mod I made back in 1.2.5 Minecraft, and that was the Sentry gun I used, or really close to what I used. It may not be the exact model because, after all, there's been updates to things, and we probably threw it back in the mod with some intention to do something with it. I'm about to throw this in the wrong mod. So we want Armory mod, source, main, resources, content, armory. Actually, we don't want the content folder. We want the asset folder, armory, models. I'm going to throw it here. So this is Pocket Turret is what we're going to call this, and we're going to actually rename it to test.turret. And we're going to do this. Cool. That gives me a tester to play with. It's going to be pretty much gray. We'll change the color of the base so we can see the base separately. We need to get the entity render, rotation object and stuff. Pause.x. We make sure we still got our text rendering. This is where it's going to actually start to get tricky because I've got to make it function. And there's not a lot of options to make this probably work. So we're going to go, yeah, is it Sentry? Yes, just literally Sentry. So in this case, it'll just be past Sentry and all these. We know that the entity does render by itself because after all, we've been testing and it's been rendering. So we don't have to worry about making sure any code works specifically well. We do need to rename this to Sentry gun. I will have to go, oh wait, cancel. I need to call this Sentry model. Sentry backup model is what we'll call this. So if you don't provide a Sentry model for your Sentry gun, it'll render as this. That's how we'll deal with it. What else we got here? Trying to think of precisely how to handle this. Packet handling is my best option. Luckily, this is already handled by automatically, so all I gotta do is just make a new method that calls super. And we actually want to throw this in our client because we want all this data right now to be client side because we have no server data at the moment. I say that at the moment because here later we're going to need things like right clicks and a few other handling. Although right clicking is already handled by the tile, we're going to want to do other things with it. So we want to return true by default. Then we want to go if super.read buff id player and type, and we want to go not, because if we haven't read it, if the super class has not read this packet, then we want to read it. We want to return false in here, and what we're going to do is we're going to go if id equals 2 is what we'll use our first id as, and then we'll read true in here, and what we're going to read in is an id. So we're going to go entity id equals buff.readInt. And we're going to go world.getEntity by ID. And we also want to do something really quickly here too. So I'm going to go if entity ID equals -1. That'll be our null condition. So that is if we kill the turret off. So I'm going to go Sentry equals null. In this case, we want to then handle if entity is instance of entity Sentry equals entity. And we just have to fire this packet from the server. So that handles all that. And we come over here, public void send Sentry ID to client. And the packet tile equals new packet tile this, and then number 2, and then if Sentry equals null, -1. If not, we want Sentry.getEntityId. and then engine.instance. I still need to get around to moving the packet handler to its own object, because having to call engine.instance packet handler has been annoying. We should just go packet handler.send, and then it handles itself. And we want to send it all around, I guess. We'll do a description packet too, but right now we just want to do this and do that. So that'll send a packet to everybody with 1,000, and we're going to put this into our create entity object. Or first tick is actually where to put this. Public void first tick super.first tick. Put that there. At override. And we put that there and put this here. Actually, you know what we want to do? We need a getter. So we're going to highlight this, refractor, encapsulate fields. So we're going to turn that to a private object, and everything's going to start utilizing it. And then down here, send description packet. We do need to do something here, so we need to go if world doesn't equal null, and then is server. So we need to make sure that every time we call this packet, we're making sure we're ensuring it's a server-side packet, and then we're ensuring that the world is a null. So if this runs when we do the packet load, because it is going to run right now when we do packet, or when we do save load, we don't want this to be sent. We do need to do our description packets now. So there's a write description packet and there's a read description packet. Right now, all this does is set our facing of our machine. So we're going to get rid of these two because these are set in the super call. And in here, we want to do exactly what we just did here. So we want to do buff.write integer. Actually, we want to do this down here. And then our read call is going to be in our client. The reason you do this is you want to ensure that the server cannot read a description packet. The server should never do that, because what you're going to have is going to have a hacker. He's going to figure out that the packet system is vulnerable. He's going to send a description packet from the client to the server and change that server's tile. I've done this to IC2 before. IC2 had that vulnerability for a while, and I think it has been fixed. But for a good short period of time, it had a vulnerability. And what we want to do in here is, or actually, no, we're going to do it this way. Protected void set entity int ID, and we're going to actually change that to entity ID is what we're going to change that to. And this recycles our code a little bit here. So then we go set entity and then entity ID, and we just got to this real quick. That gets our description packet. Description packet makes sure that the client knows what entity belongs to us. We will send the Sentry data this way too, but right now the data is not serializable. I want to make sure it is, because that'll save us so much time if we can just turn it into a byte array and then turn it back out of a byte array on the other side. Or we just call a read-write method on it, which we'll probably actually do as a read-write method. So this should all work. We're going to have to do some offsets here. So right now this is, we want to render base, and so bind the texture, so translate, bind texture, rotation pitch needs to be done for the tert only. So we want to render tert and we render base. I need to open the model back up. Hopefully these pieces are named. Okay, center fbrac, whatever. Okay, so we got a neck object. Okay. Left face, right face, head, barrel, barrel brace, barrel cap. And this needs to go up a little higher. So we want everything below the neck is what we want to render as part of our turret. So I'm going to move this over here so I can see it while I type. Apologies, you guys won't be able to see it. But we want to come down here and we want to render only just want to type in the parts. So left face, this is why I tell all my model makers, please name your parts, because if I have to do animations, this is literally what I have to do. Because right now there's no animation system in here, there's no system, there's no hierarchy system, which I really wish we had, because if we had a hierarchy system, I could say render turret, render base, and we'd be done. I'm slightly regretting opening my window because I can hear all the cars down on Main Street. Okay, barrel brace, barrel cap. And then what we want to do is come up here and we want to render all except, so we're going to have to change the method, but I want to copy so I get the names. So we're going to do render all except. And we can actually save ourselves some time by, I don't want to go up there and do it, but I'm going to do it right here. So it'll be final string parts, and then we do new string. Just in case we need to edit it, we can just edit it up here. We don't have to edit it in two different places. And we can put it down here, and you put it down here. This is how you actually would do your group things, and this is how the JSON system works, by the way, is you would supply a list of parts you would render for your turret, and you'd supply a list of parts you would render for everything else. The unfortunate scenario with this is the center of mass of this model is going to be in the most weirdest spot ever. So the rotation is more than likely not going to be correct on this. So apologies when we go to render this, it's going to look like shit. I think. We'll figure it out. There's a way to make Technique models rotate properly, but it's the reason why when we make our object models, we separate all of our pieces out into individual pieces, and then we have to make sure those pieces are centered to mass correctly so that the center of mass is the rotation point, because we're working with OpenGL and there's no helpers to rotate things. So if we want to rotate something, it's going to rotate around a center point. So unless that center point is set properly in the model, we would have to make that center point. And unfortunately, we don't have the code set up to do that at the moment, and I would have to go make it. In order to do that, it would involve, you know, the trigonometry we were doing to figure out where that smoke particle was. We would have to do that for a model, and that would be annoying. I did it once upon a time, and let me find this picture. Pictures, games, Minecraft. Hopefully I still have this picture. It's probably in the assembly line folder. Ah, here we go. Okay, so I made this back in 1.2.5 Minecraft. It's the reason why I love 1.2.5 Minecraft. I did so many cool mods. This is a walking robot. See how his knees bend? His knees bend, his ankles bend, his hips moved, every part of him moved as if he was like a humanoid object. I did get this working so nicely for a while, and I wasn't getting enough support from my fellow modders to continue the project, and I just let it die because I was like, well, if nobody cares that I'm making this mod, why am I making it? This is back in my early days when I was modding and I didn't really quite know what I was doing. I didn't know what objective I was doing. I didn't know if I was making mods for fun, fame, fortune, whatever. Now I make mods for fun because that's what I do. I love to do it. I do try to make a little bit of money off modding when I can, but my main goal is just to enjoy the process. Back then, though, it was confusing. So I made that because I was like, oh, that'd be a cool picture process, and what the crap. I messed up. So I need that renderer back. So I need you. Guys, again, I need an empty render so it doesn't render the bounding box, or else it will. I think I had a prefab to do this automatic, so I didn't have to do that, but oh well. Let's see what Twitter's blowing up again. Nothing really going on. Okay, nothing going on Twitter. Just some people replying to me replying to them, replying to stuff. Okay. Sorry about being silent there. I was entertaining myself by scrolling through Twitter and I forgot I was recording. It's gonna be a long day. Okay. We're not rendering. Why aren't we rendering? Oh, I know why we're not rendering. I didn't register the client-side tile. My bad. So actually, there's a couple things I forgot to do. Primarily, I need this. This needs to be up in here. So I've got to define I need a client-side tile in here, but this won't fix my issue. I still have to register the tile. To register the tile, I've got to go and do stuff like this. So I got to take this out of here. I then need to go to the proxy. I then need to make a server proxy. New Java class, server proxy, extends common proxy, and then public void pre-init super.preinit. Put this in here, and this will be armory. I didn't want armor type, I want armory. Okay, so that's how we're going to register this. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the client proxy, and we're going to do the same thing, except instead of registering the server version, we're going to register the client version. And luckily I already have a thing here, so I didn't have to copy the whole thing. Let's get rid of that, move that over, client, proxy. Looking good. We now need to go into our armory object, and I need to define we now have a server proxy. Wait, do we already have a server? Oh, shoot, we already had a server proxy. Derp. Would pay if I actually pay attention. Not all of my mods have server proxies, might I note this. It's just occasionally you get them, and I probably thought I was going to need a server proxy for this. Most likely because I was going to need a command system and I want to register my commands in a server proxy. Most of the time when I register commands I do in the main mod class, and that's not the way you're supposed to do it. Okay. Yeah, I think we're good, so we're going to hit launch. And I'm going to go stare at my phone because it's been vibrating. What do we got going on here? Some YouTube comments, Facebook replies, nothing important. I may sound disappointed about that, but I'm actually happy I don't have to go reply to something. As I'm running a little low on energy. Just go grab my jacket too, it's getting a bit cold in here. Unfortunately, when I get cold, I stop being energetic. So hopefully by tossing this on, I'll be a little bit more energetic. And I'll get this speed back going on these videos. What recording time we're at? 24 minutes. Haven't really made a lot of progress. I mean, really, we just tossed some stuff into the client. We separated our logic, got some packet handling going, started using the dynamic system. This is being phased out, by the way, for those who are familiar with Volt's engine. I like my dynamic system. It's cool. When I implemented it, it was the ideal way to go. This is being replaced by the JSON rendering system because the JSON rendering system is a new way to do it. It solves both problems. We don't have to worry about knowing how to use render code because in here you have to know how to rotate things. You need to know how to separate things, as I was talking about, like doing the rotation pitch here for the turret. That's a whole separate problem. How this would work is you would actually have two separate parts in your model and you'd render them separately from each other. There's a lot of other things. Theoretically, you'll still be able to do floating text with the JSON system. I just have to program the behavior for it. there'll be a render state called floating text, or there'll be a render object called floating text. But that's going to come when I do layered model rendering. Okay. Our Sentry gun's null. That's the reason why it is not rendering. And our client is most likely not getting the data. Why are we not getting data? I'm not sure what is not working properly. So we're going to do this. Get rid of that. We don't really need first tick anymore. So we go load Sentry gun. We set our Sentry gun. Oh. Here's the problem. Here is our problem. So this needs to be Sentry equals. Then Sentry spawn. Then set Sentry to Sentry. Because what we were doing is we were creating a Sentry or object, but it didn't have an ID. And that's probably why the reason it's breaking. Still not working. So we need to follow this behavior from start to finish. Okay, so Sentry is null. Okay, create, set position, place it into the world, set Sentry, do our thing, do this, come down here, send packet, need to go right here. Where was I at? I have lost my place of mind. Okay, here we go. Hit play. That should have sent a packet to the client. Okay, I got my packet. Got an ID. Going into here. Oh. Doesn't equal -1. Or we're just going to do this way. Greater than or equal to 0. Derp. It's not paying attention to the code I was writing. Hit play. Let me get rid of my debug line here. Apparently I got another debug line here. There we go. Look at that. Oh! The turret's actually rendering properly. Technique models for the win. You know what? I don't want the base to rotate. So we're going to go up to here. I need to fix the position data too. Run class file. Getting a little loopy. Need some real food. So we need to translate by 0.5. Actually, what we're going to do up here is we're going to go double Rx, double Ry, double RC. This will come into play a little bit here later when we go to do more complicated rendering behavior. Right now we don't have complex rendering behavior, but this does help. This also makes the code easier to read. So we know what this stuff is, we're familiar with what this is when it comes to other model rendering systems. Mine uses a little bit more fancier systems when it goes to run. Okay, we're centered now. Now we need to make sure the base isn't rotating, so we want to remove rotation from the base. Bring it back down here. Okay, now we need to raise our bottom point up. So we're going to go 1.5 because that's actually the standard render thing for... Oh, come on, that's not going to work. 0.5 maybe. There we go. That's perfect. hit F3B. We got a hitbox. You could shoot and kill this thing if I actually had HP implemented on it. It's doing a half decent job. I need to adjust the offset position for the barrel, because that's where the smoke should be, is the offset position for the barrel. That's going to have to be handled via JSON because we would have to raise it by 0.1 is what it would have to be most likely. Other than that, it's working. That's actually pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and take some screenshots of this running. And yeah, I'm going to cut the video here and I'll be back. I'm going to go take a break and get some real food and deal with all my email notifications and everything else.